So, as a facilitator, I often get asked the question, how do I set up effective small group dialogues along lines of difference, whether that's around political difference or race, gender, sexuality, or other hard issues? So in this video, I'm going to give you 4 key steps to consider if you want to set up a healthy, productive, and genuine dialogue across lines of difference. So first, and really importantly, is choose participants carefully. A dialogue across a line of difference is usually one that's going to evoke strong emotions, identity issues, all sorts of challenges. And so just kind of saying, hey, we're having a dialogue on, I don't know, climate, or we're having a dialogue on sexuality and the Catholic Church, right? Everyone's welcome. I mean, it sounds nice and could be extremely dangerous. I would say that you want to be really thoughtful, especially if you want it to be a healthy, genuine, and honest dialogue about who comes in. So I'm going to give you an example. Well over a decade ago, I was working with some students to create a dialogue within the Catholic Church that brought together some members of the clergy and then some disaffected or unhappy Catholics. And one of the things that we realized is that this would only work if we got disaffected Catholics who really wanted dialogue. So what we knew is that there were some Catholics who are extremely and understandably very angry. And they weren't ready for dialogue. They actually maybe would have done well in a listening session, but not a dialogue. And so we actually made sure that we identified the right people from the disaffected group who were really ready to share their experience and also able to listen. But we had the same challenge with Catholic clergy, because there were some Catholic clergy that had really been so beaten up that they were actually really good at listening, but pretty incapable of sharing anything about their own experience. And so because this was a pilot and we wanted to make the dialogues really rich, we had to do some discernment to get the right set of people in the room. So that's one piece of advice, right? The other thing here is that around participants, you want to make sure that it's the right mix of people and the right number of people. So I always kind of think it's slightly ridiculous to say we're going to have a dialogue and it's like a town hall meeting. Like putting 50 people in the room doesn't really allow for a genuine dialogue. In fact, usually what that leads to is something that's a little bit more like grandstanding, because there's not that opportunity for real exchange. Okay, second, once I've selected the people, I want to think about, is there some advanced training that I can give them on how they can be effective in the dialogue? So sometimes I might even say having that advanced training be almost an admission requirement to the dialogue itself. So what would be in this advanced training? Well, it would be a little bit like, how do I have a difficult conversation? So what are some basic listening skills? What are some of the skillful ways that people can share their own experience, their truth, in a very authentic and non-avoidant way, but also in a way that maximizes the chances that the other can hear it? And so even if it's a short, like 2 or 3 hour advanced training, right? Even if it's something done online, I think that increases the chances that the dialogue will go well. Third, this may be obvious, but I'm not sure it is having a facilitator. Putting someone there whose job it is to make sure that the conversation goes well and doesn't go off the rails. And a facilitator, I mean, in the best world, a facilitator actually has been trained to be a facilitator. But at the very least, they need to have some basic skills. They need to be good at active listening. They also really have to be trusted by the parties. They have to be really good at keeping the conversation focused and on point. And this is really important. They have to be someone who's not afraid of conflict or difference themselves. A real common mistake I've seen facilitators make is that as soon as the least bit of discomfort comes up, they back away, right? They try to smooth it over. Now, a facilitator does need to know how to create a low-risk space because they want to encourage the conversation around lines of difference. But low risk doesn't mean that differences don't get surfaced. In fact, the whole purpose of the conversation is to surface differences and then dig into them so that people can really learn. Fourth tip is the importance of managing ground rules and expectations around the purpose of the conversation itself. So what does that mean? Well, setting up some rules about who's going to speak, what role do people have, encouraging active listening, having people speak on behalf of themselves and not on behalf of others, inviting people to lean in and be raggedy, meaning saying it's okay if everything you say is not articulate and perfect, that the group will extend some grace to you. All of those kinds of ground rules and expectations should be set up as part of the process. Some years ago, I was asked to be a facilitator around a set of very contentious issues about some programming that was going on in the public middle school. And as part of this, right, it became very evident to me that being really, really clear about the purpose of the dialogues was very important because that there were going to be some people showing up whose purpose was really to get school board administrators fired, and other people who were showing up to make a more public point, and that I had to run a very, very tight ship there. And my ability to kind of set those ground rules right up front and the purpose right up front made it much easier for me when people actually violated those ground rules to ask them to either please let others speak, or if the situation wasn't working for them, suggest that they find another way of communicating their concerns. So, if you're trying to set up a dialogue across lines of difference, remember these 4 important steps. First, choose participants carefully, making sure that they are people who are really ready and interested for a dialogue. Second, consider providing them some advanced skills training so that they're as effective as they can be in the dialogue. Third, bring on a facilitator. Make sure that person has good facilitation skills, that they're a good listener, that they can run the process, and that they're not afraid of conflict themselves. And then fourth, ensure that there are very clear ground rules around purpose, speaking, and roles. So keep on watching this next video, which is what happens if you don't agree in mediation. And I'd be tremendously grateful if before you leave, you would subscribe to my channel, like this video, and ring the bell so you never miss new content. Okay, keep the dialogue going. Keep watching. Click, click, click.